Some of the most epic things ever accomplished began with the phrase, "Hold my beer and watch this." So chill those ice cubes, pop that cork, or crack open that can. Because we're about to share an amazing story. Welcome to the Forward Drinking Podcast. Here's your host, John Hutchings.
Welcome back to the Forward Drinking Podcast. I am your host, John Hutchings. Today we have an incredible guest with a story that could be straight out of a Hollywood movie. Jeremy Schulz was born with a severe speech impediment and was unable to verbally communicate in his early childhood years. It was only through drumming that Jeremy rewired his brain to not only become verbally fluent, but to go on to having an amazing career in the music industry and beyond. His story was so empowering, it prompted him to write a book and even a spot on the Joe Rogan podcast. So grab a beverage. This is one you don't want to miss. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, dude.
Absolutely, man. I'm stoked. So, what are we enjoying today?
Oh, today we're having this really special, I believe it's holiday edition. It's freaking straight up ice water because I'm keeping it anabolic, got in between training sessions. So, yeah,
I
ice
love
water.
it. I love it. So one of these days when we get sophisticated enough, we'll have all the fancy videography stuff in here. So for those of you who don't know, for our guest today, Jeremy is in very good shape. Unlike the Brewer's Life myself, I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum.
There you go.
But in Jeremy's honor, I'm going to be enjoying one of our 12 beers of Christmas today, the Polar Express Cold IPA.
Ooh.
So we'll still
Delish.
crack this and whoop.
There you go.
Cheers to you, buddy.
All right, yeah.
Thanks
cheers.
for being here. So,
Thank
Jeremy,
you, yeah.
Tell us about where you grew up.
Oh, grew up straight up Redding, California, man. Born and raised. Yeah, my whole family is from Redding. I grew up more on the old Shasta side. And, man, yeah, I just love it. Grandparents were here. Parents were here. Graduated Shasta High School in 92. Yeah, it was great. I've actually lived all around the region, all the way from, when I was younger, lived in Round Mountain, Bella Vista, Palisadro, and then, Montgomery Creek for a little bit, Cottonwood, and then just ended up growing up in Old Shasta.
Nice.
Right? Yeah, right off that 299. We used to, matter of fact, back in the day, we used to ride our bicycles to Whiskey Town, right? Imagine kids doing that nowadays.
Yeah,
right?
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, imagine them like nowadays, no freaking helmets, right? Right? Just like a little BMX bike. Me and my friends, we were the long hairs. We had, hair halfway down to our ass, 2 earrings, and we'd freaking ride our bikes out to Whiskey Town. There's no other way to get out there in the summer.
Yeah.
That's what we did. It was awesome.
I love it.
That's the beauty about growing up. This is a very special place, right?
Absolutely.
It is. It's great.
Yeah, there's a certain portion of me that really wishes we could take it back to that, to be 100% honest.
For sure.
That would be awesome. Well, talking about your childhood, did you face some adversity, with growing up here?
Yeah, first of all, growing up in Redding was yeah, man, it was great. The adversity that I had grown up with was, I grew up with a massive stutter and Tourette's. I used to freaking hit the bottom of my foot, stuttering big time. This still being 50 years of age, 51 today. Thank you.
You look pretty good, dude.
Hey, thanks, bro. Yeah, thanks, man. Still being 50 years of age, I still deal with stuttering. It's much more manageable now, but back then it was, just saying one sentence took forever. Like that. Blinked all the time, man. Hit the bottom of my shoe, and it was communicating and speaking was extremely hard, And the school system, they didn't really know how to teach me. They just put me in special ed. Yeah. I had to freaking sit on my hands, right? And that's but life happens for you. Not to you, and so it was actually the biggest blessing of my life.
Yeah,
yeah.
So why was that?
Well, because of that my mom, she saw at a very young age, she saw how I interacted with the world, and she got me into playing drums. Brought a drum set home. I've got an older brother. And she brought it home for my brother and I would get behind the drums. It was a place where I felt like I could communicate without, speaking words, right? So I sit behind the drum set, and that became like my sanctuary for so long. Like I would just sit back there for hours, play on the snare drum, pretend like that was me, and then the toms and the cymbals were friends at school, and I could just have fluent conversations, right? And then I fell in love with that, and then by the time I got into high school, that's when you figure out chicks like dudes in bands, right? So you're like, oh, wait a second, yeah, and I start falling in love with music, and then that was my entire identity, man. That's all I did. I didn't care about doing schoolwork. I didn't care about anything. I grew up next to a couple of skateboarders and everything, and it was so cool because I was so engulfed in drumming. Everybody knew me as that. I'd take my drum set and bring it. So our next door neighbor had a half pipe, and he had all these cats that would ride on it, and I would set my drums up on the half pipe and just jam while they were playing, right? Yeah. So it was like that was my whole identity, and then I carried that out into my adult life. Became professional drummer, 20 some odd years. Yeah, been able to tour and travel the world and get paid being living my dream and playing drums, and then circle back, wound right back up here in Reading, and now have a drum school to be able to give back to the community where I started. So it all comes full circle.
Absolutely.
Right? Isn't that far out?
It's amazing, actually, because, you, and especially, we have a lot more stuff available today to try to help people, although I believe we could do a lot better. But at the same time, we have a lot of things today to try to help people with speech therapy and whatnot. But, you were your own speech therapist. Yeah. Growing up, you taught yourself to rewire your brain through drumming to be able to speak. That's incredible.
And I didn't realize that I was doing that until is when the realization came was when I moved up to Seattle. I was right place at the right time. I was able to move up to Seattle right in the early part of the grunge scene in the 90s, right? 94, 95, I was up in Seattle. And I went up there, and when I started, I was taking lessons at the Seattle Drum School, and then I started teaching there. The owner had asked me to teach there, and when he initially offered me the job to start teaching drums, I didn't go to Berkeley. I didn't do all of that stuff. All the rest of the teachers did. I told them no, because I was like, dude, I don't know how to read music. I don't know how to write music, and I stutter some, and so I went. It's like I went into my adult world, kind of like wearing the badge of what I told of what school kind of told me I was, special ed and stuff like that. And I don't think that nobody did that on purpose. Like there was nobody that was like, oh man, you're a piece of shit. Like nobody said that, because like you said, you only know what you know.
Absolutely.
Internet wasn't out, right? So it's like growing up in a small town, some dude that fucking blinks and hits the bottom of his foot and says Huey a million times. You're like, what? I don't know what's going on with this dude, right? I did Huey. It was insane. So I told Steve Smith, I was like, man, I couldn't imagine teaching. And he told me, he's like, listen, we're going to work on drumming. When you start to sing the rhythm parts, that's going to rewire the synapses in your brain. I didn't believe him. I was like, what are you talking about? And so he worked with me, and he did. And the more I practiced, and the more I got super disciplined and went into that. It went into that practice. The more that my speech got better. Like I said, it's still, it hasn't gone away, but it got better. It got manageable. And then this incredible thing happened. All of this confidence started coming. And then it changed the whole course of my life, because then I got confident on like, whoa, man, I could actually teach. And then I became a professional drummer. And then I got into business. I launched I had a patented invention, launched this awesome company. And then I just started getting all this crazy belief in myself. I always had it, but the working with Steve Smith and with the mentor was pivotal in that. And then, so I use a lot of the same techniques that he used to teach me. That's like my core curriculum in my teaching now, and just give that away to the world,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So backing up a little bit to high school,
Yeah.
You just took a leap of faith, I want to be a drummer. It's the beginning of the Seattle grunge scene. I'm still a huge grunge fan. I mean, I'm listening to.
It's the best, bro.
Yeah, I still listen to Sirius XM Lithium and some of the older stuff.
Soundgarden, right?
Dude, totally.
Right,
yeah,
dude,
huge.
Right. Dude, Temple of the Dog.
Temple of the Dog.
Come on.
It's like,
I mean, one of the best, dude.
right? Absolutely. And what's the one that was it's Alice in Chains as well as
the Mad Season.
Mad Season, right?
Yeah, bro. I was in Seattle in the time when Seattle was a very special place where all those bands. So we would everybody. It's like it was a really small friends community. No matter how big or small the band would be, we'd be playing a show, and the weird thing about in Seattle, all the other bands, all the other musicians went out to go see all the other bands.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like nobody else was into music except for the people who actually played it. So you're playing, you know, and there's Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and blah, 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 all this stuff, you know. I mean, yeah, you know, it's like loading on and off gear, like your band is up next after Queensryche on like a Tuesday night in a freaking bar, right?
Yeah.
And there's people fucking playing darts, you know, and Queensryche just got off tour with Metallica or something. You're like, fuck, right? It was a crazy time to be there. So cool, man.
I had a buddy of mine from high school that went to school at UW, and he's like, dude, you got to come visit me. Yeah. And that was my first time ever going to Washington. And I remember we were walking downtown, and it was probably a little after the popularity of the presidents of the United States. But I remember walking downtown,
right?
And they're "Lumps out alone in a buggy marsh," you know. And I was like, they're playing in front of a Starbucks on like a street corner,
right?
You know, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah,
we're out there jamming in the street, watching this. I was like, this is gnarly.
Yeah, Seattle is great.
So, you know, of these bands, I mean, you get up there to Seattle. I mean, basically just leave like, hey, I know I'm going to be a drummer. You peace out of Reading.
Yeah.
Head to the Seattle grunge scene. You get involved in teaching at a school.
Yeah.
And being a student to a teacher. And then you foray into playing with these bands. Mm-hmm. How did you get into playing with these bands and touring?
Yeah. So, like you said, you know, shortly after graduating high school, I was lucky. I've had a very encouraging mother. Hey, Mom, if you're listening to this, right? You know, and she was always like, "Yo, you know, you got one chance, right?" You know, she was like, "Don't knock anybody up and freaking, you know, get on it because blink of an eye, you know, it's over." So I put my drums in the back. I have a Ford Courier. Put my drums in the back of my truck. Drove up to Seattle and ran out of gas, like right at the freaking Space Needle. And yeah, you know, and so getting up there, everybody was touring up there. You could like every band up there was touring, and it's just, you know, so like you said, yeah, I started working at the Seattle Drum School, and then I would get into a band and we'd just do like the local tours like around Washington, Idaho, Oregon, and then I got into a nationally touring band, this old school legendary band called Barbie Car, and there was a couple of professional snowboarders, and there were these old school dudes, and we went all around the country. Like we'd go out for like 8 or 9 weeks, just like sleeping in the van, you know, dude, all the time. And you know, tour life, a lot of people don't like it. I fell in love with it, man. I was like, oh, dude, this is great. And then just like anything else, you know, I just kept at it, and then the bands got more professional, and the next thing you know, I would be out playing with bigger bands, and then I gotta go on like these dropout tours, you know, where like if a drummer would bail off of a show, I would come in and jump in on that band. Sometimes they'd be playing like, you know, big stadiums or whatever, you know, big festivals, and yeah, man, it was really cool. And then I'd fly back home, and then I'd have a whole bunch of students, and that's also how it actually made me accidentally get into online teaching. I got into online teaching at a very, very early part of the game, right? I had a whole bunch of students at the Seattle Drum School, and then I branched off and I started teaching out of my place because the school needed me more than I could commit to be there. So I was touring enough, and then I was teaching out of the studio in my house, and I was teaching a bunch of these Amazon cats. And I would be, you know, I'd go on tour, and they were all techie, and they were like, hey, let's just have a video lesson. So I'd be in the back of the van with my practice pad and my selfie stick, right, and like that, and giving lessons out while we're driving down the freaking I-5 or like across the country. I'm giving lessons to people all over the United States, right? Working, right? While everybody else is broke, don't got a pot to piss in. I'm back there, making money and doing that. And then it just got bigger and bigger. Then social media came out, and I'd be like, hey, I'm playing South by Southwest. Let's have like a group drum lesson. People would show up. I'll be in Chicago, group drum lesson. People show up, and so it was just freaking amazing.
Oh man,
yeah.
Talk about one thing that's cool, and I love about these stories is that it just goes to show that anybody that has passion and anybody that can just become really good at a skill. Yeah, you can monetize anything, right?
Isn't that the truth?
Right? I mean, people figure out how to take pictures of their friggin' feet.
I know,
and make it work. You know, but you
yeah.
got to have some sort of a passionate drive. I think it's absolutely freaking incredible.
Yeah,
especially too, given the stuttering and the Tourette's and everything that you did to rewire yourself. And then just the rags to rock star story that we all I think dream of.
Right. Yeah. It's like I got really high up into it, and then freaking it all came crashing down. Literally lost it all, lost everything. And now, like I told you, just turned 51 today, and I'm like 4 years into like my rebuild, and now I have everything. I've rebuilt bigger, better, and just, and with way smarter this time.
No good story comes without a fallout. I can tell you that because nobody wants to hear about the person that just, killed it and never stumbled. And it's not that we ever root for people that have problems in their lives, but I can tell you, even the little bit that I've done too, I've had massive failures. Yeah. And I think it's just part of the game. And it's those that know how to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and keep going and not like get in the fetal position and cry like a bitch. Are the ones that are able to like really win. Right. So walk us through it. I mean,
right. Yeah, and that's what brought me back here in Reading. One of the reasons why you have me on this podcast is like, I have the drum school, and I've played some good shows, but the recognition is from the Walk Across America. Yeah. So I was up there in Seattle, everything was going good, man. I'm a couple decades into my career. And by that time I was married, had a stepson, and I was, a few years into this legendary company that I had founded. I made these things called downloadable album t-shirts. Yeah. Right. You scan the shirt, it downloads the music right into your phone, and Snoop Dogg and Redman had it, and New York Knicks, and it was awesome. And I was out and touring and blah, blah, blah. And one day I was out on the road, and I went to go step out on stage in Dallas, and I got this text on my phone, one word text that just said divorce. And, the lifestyle had caught up with me, reflecting back, it takes two to tango. Yeah. It wasn't like, I'm being the perfect husband, and, my rotten wife divorced me. It took two to tango. I was not pulling my weight. I'd have divorced me too, and so, but at the time, that's not what it felt like. Oh, sure. And so that was the starting of the unraveling, right? Flew home, and everything was gone. And then, fast forward a couple months later, I'd lost everything, man. I lost my business, lost my career, my band, and everything. And so I left Seattle in 2016, and I had a few years of soul searching, travel around the world. I was solo by myself, and then I wound up in New York City. I already had a handful of students there, and I had a bunch of work there. I had an apartment in Brooklyn, and I woke up just feeling the most amount of emptiness and lack of purpose and everything. And I was like, I'm gonna walk home. I'm gonna walk to Reading. I called one of my best friends and told him. And I said, I'm never going to play drums again. And I gave away every single thing that I owned. I gave away snare drums. I gave away all my computer, every single thing. No car, nothing. Gave up my New York City apartment. And on April 22nd of 2019, I walked off the Brooklyn Bridge and walked 3,100 miles to the Sundial Bridge.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break here for a second. I'm going to grab another beer. We're going to freshen up Jeremy's ice water, And we come back, dude. We're going to hear about
do
this,
some push-ups.
this modern day Forrest Gump
Let's
vision
do it.
quest. We'll be right back. Hang in there.
Inspired by the unspoiled nature of the Fall River Valley, our craft beer community is always open to adventure. It's the spirit of innovation and exploration that move us forward. We push through tough times, step beyond our boundaries, and expand our horizons at every opportunity. Our beers have scaled mountains, floated downstream, been fireside, and a part of all the little moments that make up a life well lived. From small beginnings to big ideas, it's our passion for craft beer and the community that we have created that keep the heart of Fall River, well, brewing. Whether it's the crack of a can, the rush of a tap, or the clink of a glass, these are the sounds that pull us forward toward connection. Connecting to nature, connecting with friends, and connecting the memories you make with Fall River beers. Fall River Brewing Company is proud to sponsor the Forward Drinking Podcast. We hope these stories motivate you to think creatively, take risk, and put a plan into motion. Fall River Brewing Company, Redding, California. Please enjoy responsibly.
All right, welcome back to the show. Grabbed a fresh beer here. So, Jeremy, you were just telling us about getting ready to go on your Forrest Gump quest across the U.S.
Yes.
So you'd been doing a little bit of traveling and some soul searching after the loss of the wife and kind of the fallout of your business and you just found your calling one day to walk from the Brooklyn Bridge to the Sundial Bridge back here in Redding.
Yeah.
Which I've heard about this on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes,
this
sir.
is, listen up, folks.
Yep.
This is no shit right here. So lay it down for us.
Yeah, well, everybody asked where I got the inspiration to even do it. And I was going back and forth. I had a place in Bangkok. I had a little Airbnb that I rented out in Bangkok, and then I was going in between Bangkok, Dallas, and New York for a while. And when I was in Bangkok, there was this guy that was running across Thailand, and it was so captivating. He had like the news, all the media outlets were just glued to what he was doing. He was raising money for these children's hospital, and they would interview him at night after he'd get done running, and he'd just talk about how much joy it brought him. And I was so void of joy. I was like searching. I talk about in my book. My book is called Way of the Wandering Monk, Walking Home. And I was in search of this answer to a question that I didn't know how to ask. And I didn't know where to find out the answer. And he was talking about how much joy he felt. And I can remember waking up in the morning in my apartment there in Brooklyn, and New York is a lonely, lonely place, right? Millions of people are so lonely, right? Neighbors don't talk to each other, and everyone just like keeps their head down. New York is great. I love New Yorkers. It's a very lonely place. And I remember just being like, man, I would think about that walk that his name was Toon. And the walk that Toon would do, and I'd be like, man, I wonder if I tried walking home, walking to Reading, I wonder if I could find that same joy. Yeah. It was like my heart, my soul was so thirsty for something other than complete despair. And so I just decided one day that I was going to, and I called my best friend at the time, John Carey, Rest in peace, John. I love you. Called him. He and his family, they lived in Virginia. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, I got this idea. I need to go soul searching, and I'm going to walk. And at first I wasn't going to tell anybody. I was going to tell him. I was just going to do it by myself and I did do it by myself. But is what I mean is I wasn't going to even announce it. Right. As morbid and weird as this sound is, like I kind of sort of also had a little bit of hopes too that maybe I'd just walk and disappear. And so John and his family, they were really worried about me. And he said, hey, he's like, tied to a foundation. So that way, it gives you, you can tie it to more of a purpose rather than walking kind of purposeless to try to find something. Do it, you'll have like a bit of a community and you'll be doing something good at the same time, right? And, from having my own drum school already and teaching up for so long, I know that was one thing that just always lit me up, was being able to provide somebody with some sort of happiness or stoke, right? So I was like, that's a great idea. So I decided to link my walk to the anti-bullying campaign that I'd heard Justin Wren was on Joe Rogan. And right after I got done telling my buddy John about my walk, just like an hour later, Justin Wren was on Joe Rogan's show. And as soon as I listened to the show right afterwards, I freaking emailed him. I was like, bro, I'm going to do this and I'm going to tie, and I didn't care if he got back to me or not. I'm going to tie my walk to your anti-bullying campaign. And then he and his crew, they got a hold of me, and then I linked it up, and it was great. I'm glad that I did it because it instantly started providing some happiness and some joy to me. And then by the time I made it to Reading, I was able to donate $10,500 to their anti-bullying campaign.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and then I, found the answer to my question and was a completely new man after walking for 178 days with a 52-pound pack and 6 near-death experiences.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you about how much time it took you, but I mean, there had to be some crazy stories along the way walking across the United States.
Oh, man. Yes. Enough to where, I have a book coming out. My book is literally in the editing process right now. But yes. So, there's a handful of people that walked across the U.S., and most all of them have a crew, right? I didn't. It was just me. I had a solo, and I had a right around 52-pound pack on my back. And I remember the press being at the bridge when I was leaving, and they were like asking me like, hey, what about your crew? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking? I'm just gonna walk. And so they were asking me like, hey, what's your route? Bro, I didn't even have a route. I was like, right before I left, I decided I was going to walk 500 miles out of my way, go up to Niagara Falls first. So I had a good buddy that walked with me for about a week on the way up to Niagara Falls. And so I didn't even have a route. I just kind of winged it. And during that 178 days, man, I fell off a 40-foot cliff in the Pocono Mountains, right? That was a week that was a week and a half into the walk. I had my backpack on and stepped over the guardrail to go piss, and the road breaks off, and in mid piss, right? Boom. Head over heels. Boom, 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 right? Got pee all over me, man, right? And then backpack is a strew everywhere, and I get up and I don't know how, but I did not break anything. I was mad sore. Got everything back into the backpack, and then I looked up, and then it started freaking raining. And so it took me about another hour to go up the hill because it was like mudsliding down, right? Slept in the woods that night. And then so I fell off a 40-foot cliff. I got caught in a flood in Indiana where this bridge had broke, and the water came down, and it took me away. And this guy comes down in a Jeep and saves me. And that was terrifying, just absolutely terrifying. And then I got lost in the Shawnee National Forest for 4 nights. And that was brutal. Fell asleep up against a tree, with a whole bunch of ants in it. So like, imagine, you're like second or third night in the forest, all, totally lost, and then getting covered with ants, right? Because there was like, I think I sat on like an ant hill or whatever. And so they were everywhere, bro. They're in my beard and all over in my clothes. And, that was brutal. And then I got lost in the Oklahoma Panhandle where I almost died and ran out of water. That was the first time I ever prayed to God. I prayed in the middle of the Panhandle. And then I actually found God on my walk and then prayed for water. Water showed up, completely saved me. And then a few nights earlier, I had camped out, and unbeknown to me, there was a prison break. This is what they talk about on the Joe Rogan show. Yeah. There was a prison break in the middle of when I was camping out in this field, and they said, hey, if you hear prison sirens, you got to stay in your tent. But if you hear tornado sirens, go run to the thing. So there was tornado sirens going on at the same time that there was this prison break. And like there were branches coming down on me, man. I was getting flooded out, and it was fucking just super terrifying, right? And the road that I had almost died on in the Panhandle, I had this group of coyotes that would surround my tent at night. And it was as if I got stalked, And then in Nevada, I freaking bear maced myself and walked for 3 days with bear mace. Sprayed myself right in the face. I don't know if you've ever seen bear mace, but it's gnarly.
Yeah. Pack it elk hunting.
Yeah.
To ward off grizzlies.
Well, you ever sprayed yourself on accident?
No. I've practiced spraying it, but yeah, I can't even imagine.
No, I got the safety came off and my elbow hit it because it was on the side of my pack, and it just shot me right in the face. And it was, dude, it got, so the KOA was 3 days away, like a 3-day walk through Nevada. And then, so I had to walk to get, to shower it off. Cause after a couple days of walking, like after a while, I'm not saying like you get used to it, but you forget. I'm like, oh, it's off my hands. And so of course I had to piss.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But I still, that freaking bear mace, man, gets all over you. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. And then I had the skin on the bottom of my feet literally came off after walking through, a week of rain when I was in Missouri, and then it dried out and cracked. And bro, yeah, it was gnarly. One of the coolest things I ever did, but I completely, it was like a spiritual quest, and I wasn't much of a believer of God, but before the trip, and literally found him on that trip, and it's changed my whole entire life.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said about spending time alone and rewilding yourselves. Actually, one of our employees has walked the Pacific Crest Trail twice, northward and southward. She's done the Continental Divide. She's done Appalachian Trail. Jen loves podcasts, so hopefully she's listening, Jen.
Yeah.
But she said the same thing. She talks about it, and she's been here and gone a lot because of that calling for the wild,
Yeah.
And the little bit of time I spend backcountry hunting, I totally get it. I mean, there's something to be said about rewilding yourself and getting out there, unplugging from the shit that we're plugged into all the time.
Exactly. That's where all the truth resides. It's like, I realized when going for my walk, I was running from a lot of stuff, and then you get in these bouts of isolation, and that isolation, man, you're forced. You're forced to tap into. It's like my phone would die, so I couldn't listen to music. Right, I was in the middle of nowhere. Most of the U.S. is completely desolate. So it's like I was walking through the middle of nowhere most of the time, and I had these bouts of isolation where it was the sound of my footsteps and then my breath, and then I would hear what I thought was the sound of God's voice, clear as day, just like our voice is talking right now. And we would conversate for hours, man, and just hours and hours and hours. And it was incredible. And they're pain in my feet. While I was in that state, nothing hurt. I wouldn't get tired. People would be like, oh, how could you walk for 11 hours or whatever? I didn't feel anything. Now, afterwards, I was sore as shit, right? But you would tap into that flow state.
Yeah.
And to that flow state. And that's where I figured everything out, man. That's where I figured out that every single thing that I needed was already resided within me, right? So when I say my book is called Walking Home, is literally like I grew up in Redding, so I was walking home, but I had also realized that I had abandoned myself, and I was looking outside of myself, even as everything was coming as my life imploded, right? That was due to I was seeking all of this external stuff, external partying and just blah blah like that. And I wasn't coming home. I wasn't getting in touch with my inner self to find these answers and to find out how I should react to certain situations or whatever. And I completely abandoned that. Now on my walk, there was nothing else for me to do except for return home. Yeah. And then once I returned home, then it was cool because I had that coming to Jesus part in the Panhandle, and it was like after that I started walking and I started thinking about, wow, man, if I'm gonna rebuild, like old Jeremy is completely dead and gone. Like it was like completely dead, burned to ash. The ash was like turned into wind. And so I said, some people might find that sad, but I started getting really excited, and I was like, man, I could rebuild like a whole new man. And so when I was walking, I would just I would just like imagine in my mind, what's this new person gonna be like, right? And then I was thinking about like the kind of wife I'd get, and then I was like, oh yeah, I want to be a man of substance in my community. I want to be able to, have purpose rather than beyond just playing a big ass show and just, get my picture taken and doing this. And then by the time I made it to the Sundial Bridge, I like to say I walked 3,100 miles to the starting line and not to the finish line. Right. And then that's when it all hit me that was the beginning of my new life. And now fast forward 4.5 years later, it's I've been able to take all of that and apply it, and it's almost like I live in fairy tale land, man. I got the raddest wife and an amazing business downtown. I'm training 45 and 50-year-olds all over the U.S. on how to get super shredded. I got my book coming out, a film, an album. Freak.
Heck
awesome, bro.
I love it. So tell me about your drum school here in Reading, because that was what brought us together to get on this show.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So give me the breakdown on that.
Yeah. That was a culmination of like I realized when I was on my walk, found that that it was my calling to be able to teach others the way, to be able to help people be able to access the power within themselves, and the language that I've spoken most fluently in my life was the language of drumming. So it was something I already knew how to do. Like I said, I had quit drums. When I showed up, I got rid of drumming, but drumming never got rid of me, because when I showed up to the Sundial Bridge, I had people there waiting with drums.
Yeah.
That knew that I had given my way. Not little toy drums. I'm talking like $1,000 freaking snare drum, hand hammered brass, freaking wood hoops, man. Just like, bro, here. And so, the girl that I was dating at the time flew out. Boom, we got married, and then she loves it here in Reading. And then I was like, man, a couple years ago, I was like, okay, I need to really get going on my purpose and my mission. So I decided to open up Beats from the Core. Beats from the Core was already a drum school, but it was online. But I said, I want to be able to give it to the community. So we decided that we would open up a music school that teaches drums through these 4 core principles, right? So connection, discovery, empowerment, and transformation. And our mission would be to transform lives and impact communities through drums, through drum lessons, one beat at a time. So I decided that we'd find a place. We looked all over Reading, and I tell people, yeah, drum school. They're like, not here, bro, right? And then we found this great place there, right there on right in downtown on Market Street. And our landlord, dude, man, she was so great, man. She was amazing. I told her what we were gonna do. She was like, this community needs you guys. We signed the lease, and we've been there for October was our 1 year, and we decided I decided that we were going to open up a drum school that was a little bit different. It was more for the people, instead of having a school that is for like prodigies, where like you try to get everybody to go to Berkeley and all of this stuff. You get anybody who has an interest in finding their own rhythm, or maybe the rhythm of a community. That's our customer. That is the fit of the drum school. We have people that have come in that have never even held sticks, and next thing you know, dude, they're playing songs. They're playing in our ensemble programs, and then I have a couple of employees, and I wrote a teacher training program that teaches them how to be able to teach through these 4 core principles. So I've had people come in that wanted to work there, and they might be good drummers, they might be like that, but that's actually the very last requirement. It's not even the first, second, or third requirement. They have to be able to come in and buy into the mission statement to be able to use drums as a vehicle to build up other people. Like I was telling somebody the other day, we could have a sign out in front of our place that instead of saying Beats from the Core Drum School Reading, we could have a sign that said People Building Factory. But nobody would understand what that is. We just use drums as a vehicle to be able to build communities, right? and individual people, and that's branched out doing it through the community. I work with the with the MLK Center here, right? A lot of special needs here, and then also do corporate team building workshops. I was just down in San Francisco last week, where these corporations, these tech companies or whatever, they'll hire me to come in and do a team building workshop. Imagine your team. You got like a team of 30 people, and I show up with 30 freaking drums, like not little bongos. I'm talking like, floor toms, Neil Peart style drums, right? Yeah. Like that. And we all get together in a circle and we freaking jam. And then I talk about my talk, and then we end, and everybody is you just jam as a big freaking tribe, right? Oh, and so, that's my, that's literally, that's my calling. That's my calling. And the community has been amazing for us. We got hooked up with all the charter schools here, So this is going to be our second summer. We're going to be going in to summertime. I just can't wait, because we're going to have camps and workshops and all that. It's fulfilling. I get to freaking wake up and run a drum school all day.
Yeah, do what you love,
bro,
and empower
right?
people.
Yeah,
heck yeah, dude, it's so awesome. Well, I'll tell you what. Before we wrap up here, I want you to give us a little bit of a plug. Give us a full-blown plug on this book, because I'm stoked. So when is the hardback versus the audiobook, which I'm kind of stoked about, because you told me a little bit about the audiobook. So tell me a little bit about that and what you're doing, what's going to make it so incredible.
Oh, yeah. I was just telling my wife, writing this book has been twice as hard as walking, right? Walking was retrospectively, walking was easy. So now it's like the book is I finally finished writing it, right? It's in the editing process right now. And so, because I'm me, the way that I do shit, it's like my biggest pro and my biggest con, right? Biggest plus and curse at the same time is I'm a dude that's either on 0 or 11. It's like I have that hard time like fucking halfway doing anything, right? So, this is the normal way. You make a book, and then you get it published, and then they take care of the audiobook and it goes out. Well, this is how Jeremy does it, right? So it's like I write this book, and then I go and I do I'm going to be doing the audiobook myself, but because I'm a musician, I'm going into the recording studio, and we're going to do what they call the very first ever sonic audiobook. So we're going to have a full like movie soundtrack that's going to follow along while the author, myself, narrates the entire book. And then each chapter, there's going to be 6 chapters of the book, and each chapter is going to have a corresponding song. And I'm doing that with a local dude here in town, and this local dude is absolute freaking legend, right? Jesse Lawson, right, from Sundial Studios. And Jesse is a 2-time gold winning recording artist. I think he might have had a Grammy nomination. Yep. So he and I were actually going to be submitting this to the Grammys. And right now we actually have a crowdfunding thing going, where if you guys get to my Way of the Wandering Monk Instagram, you guys just click on the bio, and you guys could help donate to being able to get this out. This has to come out by April, because April will be my 5 years, and we want to have the launch at the Brooklyn Bridge. And Jesse and I will probably perform whatever music we're going to come. We're going to have some heavy hitters on this album, like some real deal, like, big time dudes. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for maybe, I don't know if I should say, but some big time dudes. I'll tell you off air. But yeah, this book, it may seem like it's about a walk across America, but this is one of the most important books that I feel like is going to be coming out in 2024. This is a book of loss, hope, redemption. This is a book that also talks about the unbelievable discovering about how beautiful people are going across the United States, man. 178 days of absolute love and compassion from complete strangers.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, your story is incredible.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you for sharing it here on the Forward Drinking Podcast. Thanks for being here today, man.
Yo, thanks, man.
Freaking awesome.
On my birthday too, bro.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude, 51. Gonna go have some fucking steak and lobster at Kobe's tonight. Yeah.
Kick ass. Well, brother, I appreciate it, and thank you guys for joining in. Stick around for the next episode of the Forward Drinking Podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our social media, both Facebook and Instagram. And here's to the next one. Cheers.
Bro, great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Forward Drinking Podcast hosted by John Hutchings. Has this episode motivated you to create your own amazing story? Then please subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. You can also follow the Forward Drinking Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Forward Drinking Podcast. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.